I just saw it say we are going to be live on YouTube. Hey,
Sweet.
Kate. You hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to give you a call real quick here after we get this set up and I put myself on mute and doodle about just what I talked with Forrest about the grants and what the goal of their decision making is
Hang
today.
on, we got a problem.
What's up? What?
Okay, now try talking again. I can't hear you.
What did you say?
Oh, there we go. Okay. Sorry, I
What's
had to mute you
what's
for
the
a second. We
problem?
still had YouTube on and it was echoing in the room.
Oh,
So,
yeah, yeah. You just had to
yeah.
close the link.
Yeah, so the other thing too is just since you're doing it from there, just remember that there's a little bit of a delay from people in the room. So, and from you. So it might take, like, you might want to wait just a half a second before you start talking, and people in the room might want to wait half a second before they start talking, just so that you guys aren't talking over top of each other. Because I am noticing definitely a little bit of a delay.
Okay.
Not that anybody will remember that when you're like in the throes of conversation, but
I won't have to do much in this role. Forrest is really going to be running the meeting, so we should be good.
cool. Okay, so I'm going to switch you to being the host, and then you can pause the recording so that everybody doesn't have to listen to all this conversation.
Well, I think you'll need I think you're going to have to mute and do that on your end because you're
Okay,
you.
I'll just mute it then until everybody gets here.
Perfect. And I'm showing that I'm the host, so I think we're good. Okay, thank you.
So I'm calling to order the June 26th meeting of the Green County Economic Opportunity Advisory Board. And welcome to all, and to those of you who are joining us remotely. We'll begin with a welcome. You've been welcomed. I hope you feel welcomed. And now it's time for introductions. And we'll start with the folks who are joining us remotely. And let's start with Colette.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Colette Cox, and I'm with the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity, and it's great to be here with you all today.
Glad to have you. And Melissa? You're muted. We muted them all?
No.
Okay.
Of course, like absolutely. I should have just counted on that. We should have planned on it. Melissa Jeffers, member of the board, community at large.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Sky?
Sky White, Assistant Director, Economic Development for Grand County. Sorry to not be there with you in person.
We are too. Michael?
Hello, are we doing an introduction? Sorry.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Michael Black, I'm the Community Development Director at the City of Moab. And I'm a non-voting member.
Wonderful. Did we have Melissa there?
You got her. So there's Shaylee and Planning Zoning.
Shaylee. Okay, Shaylee.
Hi guys, sorry I'm not there as well. We have a lot of Zoomies today. Guess people are busy in the summer.
Okay. All right.
Shaylee Bryant, member of the board and chamber representative.
Wonderful. Short timer. Melissa?
Elisa.
Elisa?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you for a second there. Elisa Martin, Planning Director. Oh, there goes my light adjustment. Now you can see me. Outgoing Planning Director. This is my last meeting, but we do have Bryce from our department there with you guys to kind of start filling in while we make the transition to a new Planning Director.
Well, we wish you good speed and happy new adventures.
Thank you so much. And I do have like later in the meeting, if there's a moment that I could share something with you guys, it's just a plug for our land use plan update, the land use chapter for the general plan process. So if there's a moment at some point during the meeting that I could share my screen with you all, that would be great.
We know that you have many other things to do before departing, so I'll move that up and we'll give you that time right after the adoption of minutes.
Thank you.
So let's go around the table.
My name is Bryce Rogers. I'm the Associate Planner for Grand County.
Cassie Oliver, the Executive Director of the Chamber of Commerce.
Chris Wilson, Perf Coffee and member of this board, representing private sector.
Vika Metzner, Moab to Monument Valley Film Commission Director. And I was just saying before, I'm going to have to leave this meeting at 4, so I will be stepping out early.
Ashley Kornblatt, member of the board, Western Spirit Cycling and Public Lands Solutions.
Kate Finley, Grand County Economic Development. Jesse Lobato, Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity, Apex Accelerator Regional Manager.
Roger Coyle, SBDC Regional Director.
Jasmine Duncan, I'm the mayor of Castle Valley and a non-voting member of this board.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all. Next on the agenda, conflicts of interest, disclosures, or ex parte communications. Any of those that anybody wants to report or needs to report? Hearing none. Citizens to be heard. We don't. Are you interested in just saying a little bit about what your role is and why you're with us?
Yeah, sure. So like I said, I'm with GoYo, everything government contracting. So local, state, and federal government contracting. We help businesses either pair with partners or find contracts on them.
Wonderful. Thanks for being here. We have no presentations to be heard today. We have some discussion coming up, but let's begin with the approval of the minutes. So
Forrest, I have to say that I wasn't at that meeting, and I think I might have accidentally been added to the attendance.
This last meeting.
Yeah.
Noted, Jasmine. I will make that, I will remove that, or I'll edit that part.
Clearly you were here in spirit.
Oh, of course.
Okay. So entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Chris.
Second.
Wonderful. The minutes have been moved for adoption with a second. All in favor, all voting members, raise your hand or say hey. Okay, wonderful. Motion passes. So let's give Elisa a moment to provide her update. Lisa?
Elisa, are you able to share? Let me see if you're still.
Sorry, you guys, I just had somebody come in. So let me just share my screen with you real quick. So all I wanted to do was let you know that we have up on grandcountyconnects.com. This is the planning and zoning's public engagement website, which you're probably familiar with because we do host the Trail to Tomorrow strategic planning effort here for public outreach. But what we also do have is a future land use planning project page, and we're trying to keep this updated. Right now, as some of you may know, we have consultants on board who are helping the planning staff to bring this like very long drawn out effort over the finish line. And we're getting really close. I know Ben and Sky were able to meet with the consultants while they were here visiting in Moab last week. And so things are moving and we're getting input, but I think there's going to be a lot of overlap with economic development and opportunities for diversification through this process and determining where, we could potentially have opportunities for rezoning parcels down in the valley to more commercial type use and breaking up some of the residential areas and having some emerging nodes where commercial, like low impact neighborhood commercial or even some general business commercial could start to be established. So anyway, this is got a lot of background information, and then we're gonna just keep using this to update the community. And so you can always go here and check on what's happening with the future land use plan. They're supposed to wrap up their work in October, so we'll have like a final draft, hopefully, that we'll be going to do a public open house and bringing the final draft of the future land use plan to the community for final input. But that's all I wanted to say. I just wanted to let you know, because I know some of the conversations recently have overlapped a little bit with land use planning, and there's a lot going on with this effort. So just wanted to bring it to y'all's attention.
Thank you very much. Good luck getting all the tasks checked off in the next few days.
Thanks.
Nick?
We'll miss you.
She heard that. Next item on the agenda is a review of the 2024 special event grant applications. This is new to the advisory board, and Kate Finley has been overseeing this, doing the work that's required to prepare recommendations to the commission. This is one presentation of the applications. There will be a second one, a presentation to the Travel Council Advisory Board. And the combined wisdom of the two boards should inform the recommendation that goes before the commission. So Kate, thanks for being here.
Sure. So a little bit more background. As part of the budget process this year, the commission set aside funding to provide grant assistance to promote, market, and produce events in Grant County. So there's a couple of goals behind this. One is to increase the quality of life and community vibrancy here in the county. And then the other is to increase quality of visitation and enhance the visitor experience. So kind of keep those goals in mind as we start to move through this. This grant has existed in the past. It was broken out into a community event grant and a special event grant. It was evaluated more by an ad hoc committee, so there were representatives from this body as well as the Travel Council, my department, and other members of the community. For this year, we've kind of combined that. If you think about it, all of our events are somewhere on a spectrum, right? Like they're not just for members of the community, they're not just for folks coming in from out of town, like they're somewhere in between. And then to just make it a little bit more open and inclusive process, we're having this body as well as the Travel Council as boards evaluate and make recommendations to the commission. So goal for today, if anyone was able to look at the materials, there's $67,500 allocated for the special event grant. We tally up the funding request. There's a lot of great applications, but it comes out to much more than $67,500. So,
would you repeat that number again?
$67,500.
And how many applications?
We've got 15 applications, and I think if you tally it up, the total funding request is upward of 100,000.
It's almost 150,000, just under 150,000. Yep.
So if the chair would like, I mean, I can just do like name of event and maybe a 1-sentence summary, or we can just look at what's on the screen. I don't know how you think it's best.
Maybe we should do both. You're more familiar with the intent of each item, each applicant. So if you would walk us through the summaries, they're full applications in the back, but do that. But Chris, you have a question?
Yeah. I noticed that several of these events have already occurred.
Yep.
How do we deal with that? What is that
Yeah,
mean
so
for the process?
funding can be applied retroactively for this year. So the whole process was approved by the commission. We did get approval also from the county attorney's office. And because of the June 1st cutoff, if the event was already taken place for this year, if they're awarded a grant, that funding can be applied and they would just follow the same process of providing receipts and post-grant reporting. As well as if the event's moving forward, then we would just proceed as normal. So it's kind of moving backward.
May I ask a question?
Other questions? Sure.
Yeah. When I read through all of the applications, it looked like there was some copy and paste stuff, and several of them, or some of them from the same organization.
Yeah, so there's a few of the events that are coming from the same applicant. Okay. So we looked through the Amasa Trail Race, Arches Ultra, Behind the Rocks Ultra, Canyonlands Half, Dead Horse Ultra, and Red Hot Ultra are all from the same applicant. And then there's also a bit of connection between the folk festival and the free concert series, because the free concert series is put on by friends of the folk festival. So there's a bit of something there as well. So the paragraphs that you see in the summary, we just asked applicants to give us basically like a 1-paragraph summary. If you want more detail, all of the applications are attached as well, but I'm gonna try and even beat the 1 paragraph and just do like a 1-sentence in the interest of time. So let's go.
One second.
Let's wait.
I feel really funny about the retroactive thing. I mean, I get how the timing of the whatnot happened, but as an event producer, like if you've already done it and made it happen, and then somebody gives you money after the fact, you're gonna be scrambling around to figure out what receipts you can apply to that, and like, it's a little weird. And so I don't know how many of them have happened. I did notice that one or two had, but, and because we're so oversubscribed, I mean, what we're really trying to do is, like, this money is gonna make a big difference to people who are trying to make their event happen in the future. And it just feels a little strange to be retro. I get it, the dates that it was approved and how that worked, but couldn't you, and it's not like because you get funded this year, you couldn't get funded again next year, but it just feels, that feels very strange to me. And I think we put the event operator in a little bit of a weird position, because they're like, I wasn't counting on this money, now I just got this money, am I using it for next year? Or, and, because in theory, most of these events are gonna wanna happen again, so. I don't know.
Well, we can make that part of our discussion for recommendation.
Yeah, and could I comment on that, just to give some background context on that? So we, because of the situation the department was in pushing this through the way it had to be organized this year, which, by the way, will, in 2025, the program's already set up and the commission has already agreed to go through these steps, so there won't be this lag next year. But we did reach out to a lot of these people that had their events earlier in the year. We had communications with them and articulated the process, and they also communicated to us that there are final bills and things that come after the event is already completed. So I would hate personally to see not looking at events that had happened in the first 6 months of the year not be considered, because of the process that we have to go through this year. That's just my 2 cents.
I just think if an event promoter's waiting for this grant to pay bills, they're in big trouble already. I mean, I get the timing and maybe it can't be helped. But I just find that really weird. And
Does it punish future people from doing early stage events because they never get access to?
well, no, next year they can apply. I mean, if they pulled it off, they did their event this year, and then they're like, we could give them, if we're gonna give them money, could we give it to them for next year? I don't know. Maybe I'm making it more complicated. Let's just see what happens. But we aren't gonna be able to give, we're only gonna be able to give 30% of these people money anyway. And so.
Or part of what they requested.
Well,
Yeah, that's part of what they requested.
Oh,
In the
unless we
past,
just did
sometimes we've done that.
yeah, okay. All right, well,
So that's a really important point. That can be solved in a couple of ways, as was suggested. Or we can just choose not to put it among the higher priority applications.
yeah. Okay, well, I'm sorry. I know you
That's okay.
have to explain that. But
And so while Kate walks through these, it'd be important for members to be thinking about what projects preferably not to exceed the 67,000 or rounded up to 70,000 total. Recognizing that the TCAB will also be going through this exercise as well.
Okay.
So Kate,
You ready?
go.
Okay, so starting at the top, Amasa Trail Race, this is a trail running event with 25K and 15K distances. Takes place down King Creek, brings in folks from all around the country.
do you know how many?
It's all in the application.
Yes, I can pull that up.
I'll look.
Arches Ultra, another long distance trail running event. This one is north of town a little bit more. It uses Barham, Quanzo, and Klondike systems. Behind the Rocks, this is an ultra race that also takes place down in the King Creek area. Canyonlands Half, which is almost at it, they're in their 50th year this year. This is a half marathon that takes place on 128, that I imagine a lot of folks are. Dead Horse Ultra, long distance trail running event. We've talked about this is the same applicant as some of the other running events that you see here. And then From a Woman, this is the first year that they're planning on having this event. It's a women's festival designed to showcase achievements of women in the local community. Arts Festival is longer standing, so this takes place in the park, Swanee Park, over Memorial Day weekend. It's been running for about 30 years now. So people come into town for the weekend, and then they have this event on Memorial Day weekend to kind of encourage visitors who are here to see the artists who come in. Moab Canyon's Endurance Ride. This is an endurance horse riding event. So they have a 25-mile and 50-mile course that takes place out at Dubinki Wells. Moab Folk Festival. This is a 3-day musical event that takes place within the city. So they have events at the ballpark and at Star Hall. And like we talked about, the Friends of the Moab Folk Festival also helps put on the free concert series. Moab Music Festival, and one thing to note with this application is they requested $10,000, but they broke it out with their sub-events. So they have a $2,500 request for Windsorlude, a $5,000 request for their annual festival that takes place in the fall, like late summer, early fall, and then they have another request for their holiday series. The car show, this is another one that takes place at Swanee Park. I'm imagining most folks here are familiar with car show, but they are requesting funding to help with marketing and kind of increase people coming into the car show, because then they can use the registration to put more money into the nonprofits if they don't need to.
Is this the first year they've applied?
I think it is the first year that
I don't remember being on the.
Yeah. Red Hot Ultra is another trail running event that takes place in the 7 Mile area. The Phoenix Moab, this is a retreat that is aimed at people who are in recovery from substance use. So they come down, they do kind of a multi-sport retreat, they all camp together and they break off into groups to do different things, create sober communities, spend time with each other and enjoy the area. And then the Youth Garden Project has applied for their Harvest Festival, which they say supports the community, right? Because there are a lot of locals who go, but there are visitors who get introduced to another side of our community through this as well. How's that for a fast summary?
Perfect. Jasmine asked about the fact that there may be a single entity applying for multiple events. So that's something we want to keep in mind. We learned that one of these events is a first-time request. That's from the Moab Rotary. And the women's, from the women.
Is the recovery one new too?
Yeah, a lot of these I believe are new. Like a lot of the trail running ones, I'm not sure we've seen funding, like grant applications from them in the past.
But they've happened in the past.
The events.
Yes.
In the past, yeah. This is for some of them, it's the first year. Like Youth Garden, I believe as well, is the first year that they've applied, but that event has happened.
So general response or questions about any of these items individually? And then, go ahead.
So the only one I have a question about is the car show, which I don't know if it was just a link to the work or did they submit a full application? That's my question.
I couldn't open it if it was attached to that.
Yeah.
Let me look, they're both.
Just pulled up an error.
It was just, and I just saw an email.
Yeah.
They did submit an actual application.
They did.
I
Okay.
can send
That's
that
kind of
out.
all I need to know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's important to me.
Yep, they did.
Take the time to apply before we.
It didn't make it onto here, but they did submit that.
Kate, that's my bad. I just included this and not the attachment on that one.
That's all right.
Would it be helpful to see that now?
Do you have it right now?
I mean, it sounds to me like they want to spend $5,000 to do marketing.
To build audience.
To build audience, and then they promise to reinvest that money into the community.
Right.
So that, I feel okay with the amount of info I had. It was just important to me that they actually submitted an application.
Melissa, do you have any questions or comments?
The only question that I have is just not understanding upstream. The original intent for the grant program, was it to get people during the off season? Was it to get people from out of town who would purchase lodging or food? Or I'm just curious about the original intent to use that as a filter when we look at the different events and applications.
Yeah, so there were a couple of goals. So one of them was to increase visitation and enhance the visitor experience. And then another was to increase quality of life and enhance kind of the character and vibrancy of the community as well.
I think that maybe it was just known, but unspoken is also diversification. I see that powwow didn't apply this year. Because we do want to become safe. The other thing is we want them to become sustainable. You know, it's like, you know, we're going to help you out, but this is your event, and if you're going to do it year after year, it becomes sustainable, not come back all the time.
Well, I think most of us who put on events don't continue to do them if we can't sustain them.
But I mean, sustainable without help from the county.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
So we have some general comments. Melissa, did that answer your question?
Yeah, totally it did. Because it's if it's the span of the whole thing, if it's enhancing the community and economic development and diversification, some of those local things like honoring women in the community, and I just wanted to know, are they mutually exclusive or what were the goals? So that was perfect.
It does seem like it's a little hard to meet all of those goals.
You mean for each event to
Well,
meet all
yeah,
those
well, yeah,
goals?
especially like with a running event, how, you know, especially because the percentage of locals they said were involved in some of those things was so small.
Right.
Yeah, it makes sense to me that some of these would fall more on supporting one side of the goals of the grant, while
Right.
some might support the other, but I don't think that's necessarily a problem. It would just mean that we would want to select a package of things that supports all of the goals. Of the
Right.
grant, in my mind.
They don't each have to support.
They don't
all
each
of
have to, but
Okay.
collectively, that's the program. That's what the program should do, is my understanding of that.
I think that's an important point, Chris, that we need to look at this as a package.
Yeah.
And still meet those three specific objectives.
When you're looking at things that have already happened, are you looking at like the ones that are more established versus the ones that might, if we were to help out, they could become more established and become more of an event? I mean, is that something that matters? Like the marathon one, the Canyonlands Marathon, that's been going strong for a really long time, but some of those other marathons people may not even know exist. So I think that might be something to think about too, like sustainability, like can we help them really become established like the Canyonlands Marathon?
I think that makes sense because this amount of money that these folks are asking for, I mean, there's a couple of bigger ones like $25,000, but for the most part, I mean, this is sort of icing money, like doing the marketing that you wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. It's not really, you can't do your event without this grant, then that's a problem in the first place. So I think thinking about helping, it could make a lot of difference to ones that are just getting started, but not have that much impact on older ones.
But I don't think I saw any of them in there say that they wouldn't be able to do this without the grant money. I think they all said they would still be doing it without it.
Right, but I guess as far as impact goes, like if we're trying to see results, that we're gonna be helping a newer event more than an older event.
Right.
And I run an old event, so.
So you're sustainable.
Well, yeah, it would be very weird to get a $10,000 check like after it finished, but that's okay.
But I would say like one of them, like the Moab Folk Festival, you know, they made a point, that's a longstanding event that's been
Right.
successful over the years. But they made a point in their application that this grant would support for them would be additional out-of-town marketing. So it's like, the difference there isn't, does the event happen or not? The difference is, do we get an extra 1,000 visitors?
What's the
to
end
Moab,
of
something like that, right? Which is that can be a really useful, in my mind, that's a useful use of public resources if it's, directly hitting the sort of the part of it that's gonna cause economic development locally.
And it's a popular event.
Yeah, and it's a big, the numbers wise, something like that is also just an impressive event in terms of attendance, room nights, things like that.
Yeah, I saw that.
Car show, both those also do really great things in the community, so.
And the car show's a local kind of vibe too.
Yeah.
Big time.
Right. Well, and the attachment or the affiliation with the free concert series is serving the local community.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're affiliated agencies or applications doesn't mean they couldn't be considered as a package. Mary, you want to?
I was just gonna say, one of the things, I know I was on the committee for a couple of the times that we've done this, and we always wanted to make sure that at least some of them, or the majority of them, not just help tourists, but also are enhancing the quality of life of the people in Grand County. And I mean, I think it was under Elaine that the Concerts in the Park started when she was the director. It was specifically started to do something for the community.
Right.
And if tourists showed up, great.
Melissa, were you signaling to add? Okay.
Can't hear you.
She was saying that.
I was just following on to what Chris had said about advertising and expanding reach. I think next year, if, depending on what Mary said, if it's enhancing the community or if it's economic diversity or economic development, it would be helpful to know, are we trying to increase the revenue from specifically people out of town or people, because then I think the advertising to extend the reach of what's bringing in that economic growth is huge. So, yeah.
So it seems we have several criteria. One is to think about the new entrants that are trying to get started and are typically reaching a diverse audience. And then we have those that are looking for marketing money to build their audience. And then there are those that are essentially looking for programmatic support, whether it's the Youth Garden Project or the races. That's the way I was looking at this.
I have a couple of just criteria that I'm interested in that I think are important to apply. I think that looking at events that do happen off season is an important thing to consider. Right. If we could bringing an extra 1,000 people to Moab is different in May and in February.
Right.
And the way that it impacts economic development and the livelihoods of people in town is different during those two time periods. So I think we should consider that. I will consider that personally anyway as we look through these, because that's, I think, valuable to the goals that we've already articulated. I think some of them, other ones, there are sort of special reasons why we should consider them in terms of other impact on economic development. So the YGP, the Youth Garden Project Harvest Fest. I believe that, and I think that it's come through on some of the strategic planning work that we've done, that food and agriculture-based tourism is an area that we can have space to grow in. And this is a very small thing, but it's also a very small ask financially to push things in that direction, right? So that's an extra sort of thing that I think we should consider as we look at that. How much they support, if it's going to be an event that's tourist oriented, but they hire a lot of local vendors, that to me is better than an event that's just out camping and they don't, right? In terms of the way that the impact is going to be. So a few of these, we know that they hire a lot of local vendors. So those would also be ones that I think would be important to sort of give extra consideration to. For me, it's there are different ways that they can do it, but there's a lot of different ways that they can be useful to economic development and tourism promotion.
Exactly. Ashley, you were gonna say
Well, I think those are really good points. And I think that those are things that we could convey in more detail to the applicants going forward, like now that this program is happening, like it would just help them know, oh, you know, whenever you're looking at applying for a grant, do I really fit? Am I really gonna score high when they grade me? And so giving them a little more feedback about that, if we start to get to that place where so it'd be like a future agenda item after going through this process, do we want to give a little more information in the application that would help them?
Right. Well, we've heard some criteria, so I think everybody's asked the questions they wanted to ask. Let's start. And Chris, I'm gonna pick on you to suggest those that are off-season or times when additional visitation and additional spending in the community is essential.
Okay, let me try. I mean, I have like a list of ones that I would fund, and they're for various different reasons. But the Youth Garden Project Harvest Fest, small financial ask, in an area, a great community event. So quality of life for community, that side of it, huge. It's like some of people's favorite event in town, you know. So big impact there. And I think also pushes us in a strategic direction of agriculture and food-based tourism. So for me, that one sounds like a great answer. Of like, for example, the Many by the Mad Moose Events, the event organizer that does a lot of the races. The Dead Horse Ultra is an event that is in the future, has one of their larger numbers of amount of attendance and room nights attached to it. And November 16th isn't like fully off season, but is moving towards things slowing down in town. So, you know, I would, of those several, pick one probably personally, you know, maybe one or two if you wanted to be more generous. And so that seems to me to be like the one that I would pick to try to support. I mean, I can keep going, but I'm branching beyond those reasons that you just suggested. I suggest to doing so. But I have my list of the ones that I would support.
It's great to have a starter list. Please continue.
Okay. I mean, I think some of these like really deeply rooted Moab events, like the Moab Music Festival, the Moab Free Concert Series, and the Moab Folk Festival are, and the car show. I mean, these are events that locals love and draw in tourists. They have a combination of, you know, providing room nights, while also providing quality collective locals. So these in a way that some few on the list do, and I didn't say the arts festival, but that would be on the list for me too, are things that really tackle, like hit both of the goals of the dual mission of the grant in a really nice way. So those would all be on the list.
Mary, do those ongoing ones, how, do they often receive this grant spending?
Hardly anyone got 100% of what they asked for.
But they typically do.
I'd have to look back, but we leaned more towards ones that.
Making spreadsheets,
Newer ones.
adding up.
But we don't have to.
Let's see where we are.
Sure.
Ashley, were you?
I'm just making a little spreadsheet so that we can add them up as we put them in the bucket and see how bad it is.
And you have to share your screen. Could you share?
Well, I don't have much yet, but as we get a little closer, maybe.
I'd like to see them.
Maybe summarize what if you don't mind.
Well, I'm
Summarize.
just putting them all on the list right now, but
Okay.
but as we talk about them, I'm kind of like including them or not.
All the ones I just listed totals approximately $65,000.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. So it's about, you know, it's in the ballpark of what we're talking about.
So, okay.
But obviously that excludes some.
Give us your list again, just for the heck of it.
Sure.
Share your screen, it's so rad. I mean, you have like color coordination, it's so. I'm sorry. Taking over over his shoulder, but it's like so good, and he has all the numbers, and I like, it's like, come on.
I
It
also have,
really
like,
helps
other
when you
random
have to go through
notes
this
that I
process,
can
yeah,
pull it
random
up.
notes, whatever.
Let me go,
I
let
don't think I can share my
me
screen.
go get Alicia
Do we
and
need
see if she
technical
can do it.
I think it would help, because it's so helpful. Really good.
I would like to see it up because
It gives us a
No
place
pressure.
working, just, you know, this is good. Yeah.
But I don't know how we're gonna share this.
Well, if we can share it, then it gives us a place to start. We can say, well, if we took off this, or if
Sure,
you,
no, I
if you can send
understand.
that,
You just send it
if
to
you send
someone?
it to Sky.
Or you have to
Sky
join-
can
Or you
share
have
it.
to jump on the Zoom.
Join the Zoom.
You have to join the Zoom.
send it Sky.
So for
What are we trying to accomplish?
Sky, we're jumping into Kate's well-organized summary of all of the applications to a preliminary list of priorities that apparently Chris has created a graphic masterpiece. So he's emailing you
We're not at
something.
the MoMA here, but it's.
He should be able to share.
Well,
You
he's
should
here in
be-
person, he's not on Zoom.
Oh, he's not on the Zoom. He could join the link. That would be my recommendation. Chris, can you just click on the link?
Let's continue the conversation and I'll work on that. It'll take a minute. I'm not on Wi-Fi yet, so.
Okay.
So Forrest, have you ever discussed having like different categories of impact, like off-season is a category, and maybe the longevity and stuff, and then ranking them 1, 2, 3 or something, and then tallying it up?
For each category.
And at the end of it, you say, these are the ones that qualify. These people have been doing it longer. These people are newer. They probably need more help than the people who've been doing it longer. I don't know if you've ever considered doing that.
This is our first time. This is our very first time.
That's exactly what we did
So,
last year.
yeah, and that's exactly the way to approach it. And what they'll be able to
Takes the
do,
emotion out of it.
right, and what they can do is take the combined results from the Economic Opportunity Board and the Travel Council Advisory Board and integrate those, and then see what the recommendations might be. Kate, do you have any
Yeah,
solutions?
we started to create a rubric, and then one of our reviewers in the review process recommended not essentially. This is where we're at.
Well, I think it's, I served on this committee that was giving away money to buy land from the state of Utah. And we had all these proposals and we had to go do site visits and it was epic. And, but we ended up with our own like back of the house way to do it that fit the intention of this was the Lee Ray McAllister Fund. And so we're gonna have to come up with those because otherwise it's definitely torture and it gets to be, and conveying that to the applicants is really important. Like if we've decided that off-season is really important or new events are really important, then we need to convey that to them because otherwise everyone's gonna apply and it's really difficult to, I mean, if you happen to know more about an event, you're like, oh, I like that event.
Yeah.
But, so I definitely think we need a rubric, we need a system and, but it's a new thing, so we just started doing it, so.
I think you could structure it in a way that, you know, some people receive 100% all the way down to maybe 25%, depending upon where they rank in that.
Can you get that into your spreadsheet?
Yeah, do that right away.
But yeah, that.
Here we are.
That's awesome.
Where's the color?
So yeah, we started looking things.
It's his brain.
Let's see.
This is what I do all the time. Colors, yeah.
So the ones that I recommended are the ones that have the orange numbers or the orange around the request.
Looks like yellow is mostly, huh?
Yeah, which is, yeah. The blue is just all the same event organizer. Yellow was stuff that I was highlighting because I was interested in it.
Sorry, I'm just like, am I not the your way too?
I consider November still off-season.
It's
getting there, yeah.
It's kind of the end of the season, it feels like it's.
So I feel like anything, if we're saying off-season is a priority, the November ones get a leg up.
February, November, yeah. June and August is kind of off season. Oh, that's true too. So
Yeah,
we
it's
should have
probably a
a
little bit. It'd be hard to cut somebody just slightly. I mean.
So reading this, remarkable.
This is just what I did while I was reading. the
I know,
application.
that's what makes it remarkable.
It was a good way to organize.
We have 3 either new or, well, I guess 3 new first-time applicants, first startup organizations or activities, Harvest Fest, the car show, and the From a Woman program. Am I reading that correctly?
Who was putting that one on? What do you think is that? Rotary. Oh, that was
From a Woman. Is that what you're asking about, Jessica?
Yeah.
It's
Oh, no,
Tony
what?
Sicola, and it's just kind of a local organization.
Oh,
Mentioned connecting with the Utah Women's Business Center. So, and then we have 2 that are connected to the Folk Festival and the free concert series for 25, the Music Festival for 10, and the Arts Festival. You've characterized this beautifully, Chris. Thank you.
Do you have identified which ones they were duplicate events from the same company?
The blue.
Is that the blue?
This is a bad thing to say because it's another factor, but some of these, the YGP is a nonprofit.
is it more music
Mad Moose
festival
is
too?
not.
Yeah, they're for-profit.
Yeah, so, I don't know.
I don't think that's a problem for us either way, as long as it meets the goals of the grant program.
Okay, great.
And for this economic development, I mean,
Yeah, that's a good point.
And the reason you don't have the car show is because you didn't have access to the application, so we don't know
That's why it's
what
not
their
yellow,
agenda
but I do have it on, right, that's why I don't have
Okay.
more detail about it, but it is on the list that is getting summed up there as being funded.
Any more questions about where we stand with this list of priorities or recommended priorities?
Well, I think it's really interesting, these wildly different amounts that people have asked for. And I'm hoping that that goes back to an actual marketing spend or whatever that they want to spend. And so by that, if so, if they have a specific thing they want to spend this money on, then chopping them up by percentage and saying, you asked for 10, we're only gonna give you 5, is kind of like, meh. But that would be something that we could think about too, as we look at their criteria. Like, I think some of them, well, they're all talking about promoting, but we don't really know how. Like,
Yeah, very few say
Yeah.
how. A couple of the applications get more info on that, but very few.
yeah,
And that's a lesson, as you were suggesting, for the next cycle, being more precise and asking for greater detail
yeah.
of how the funds would be spent.
We're giving them more guidance on what
Exactly.
our priorities are and
Exactly.
maybe making categories and
Yeah.
then also, you know,
Shaylee and Melissa, do you have comments, observations, concerns?
No, I think you guys are really on point.
Okay, thank you, Shaylee. Melissa?
Nope, no questions. Just echo the comments about being clear about the intention for next cycle so that we can create a rubric.
No, January is an off season, but we don't have that as helping out, right?
Well, the Music Festival has Winterlude.
No, I was looking at the.
At the Ultra.
Yeah, I mean, It's a tricky one when you look at all of the events by the same organizer. I mean, it's kind of like just how much do you want to support that package of events is, I mean, I think in reality, like I'd rather, I guess where I land is that I'd rather support the one in the future than the one in the past.
Oh, okay.
But
And do they have one that's in the past?
the one that's in the future, by them is the Dead Horse Ultra.
Oh, okay,
So
thank
that's
you.
the one I
Thank
put on
you.
the list
Okay.
for that reason.
I think
that
that's a
makes
good
sense.
reason.
And I also wonder about if we should have a limit of how many events an organizer. I don't know, maybe that doesn't matter.
I mean, they can apply for whatever they want, as long as we get to be rational about it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But I also think it would be good to give the applicants guidance
I
about.
totally agree.
Like if there's
What
one
are- what are
event
priorities?
that's more important for them, maybe they should limit the other questions.
Exactly.
Yeah, if we can convince them to grow the events during the off season, I mean, that's something that we'd probably do with the grant program.
Well, and if we're only funding the ones that are in the off season, that gives them the idea, like this is what, you know.
Yeah, just like only retroactively, that would be, but it'd be better if we had told them ahead of time.
Right.
So we could encourage them to organize more events like that.
But that's okay. It's really
Yeah.
hard when you're at the start. of
For sure.
something.
I like this. And sometimes it's really hard too to think about off-season events when you're doing these outdoor, you know, things like running events and anything outdoors.
And the running events is like, as part of their application, which I appreciated actually, is like, winter is a good time to hold running events. You know, just
You think
by the
it would
nature of
be,
it, it's an
yeah.
easier sport to do in the winter.
So
and
you're
your
in a-
hands don't freeze
on a
in the
mud
same way.
trail.
Like, as long as you're not dying from it because it's icy, you know?
Okay,
Was there anything that's not on this list that you'd be sad about that we didn't fund?
So it'd be the ones that don't have the orange next to them.
Right.
Are the, yeah. Exactly.
And this is all I'm working?
it's like you two are doing some form of yoga or something.
Okay. well,
Okay,
I
no,
mean,
nobody answered your question, so are we ready
I'm
to?
not trying to read and her head's like. No, this one's up higher. so.
What's the total we have to work with again? 675. Seven? That's really quite close. Okay. I mean, it's probably close enough. Because we're gonna have the combined recommendations from the tribal council anyway, so
Right.
being spot on. dollar
And then they
probably
can
doesn't
accept them
matter.
or not
Yeah,
too.
right, yeah.
Okay, let's have a motion.
one more sec. Mud Canyonlands Endurance. Mud Canyons.
That's the horse riding event.
Yes. Those people always get. It would be nice to help them.
Is that drug rehabilitation?
How long have they been?
It's not, it's separate
the
from that.
horse
That's the
riding
Phoenix
one.
Moab Retreat, but that one, I mean, the Moab Canyons Endurance, the horse riding event. I mean, to me, it didn't sound like they had a lot of local vendors and they're bringing people out to a campsite. That's why it was low on my list
Low
personally.
end.
It sounds like a
Not a
great
lot of
event in a lot of
impact,
ways,
right.
but that was my own logic.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't bringing in economy into the community.
Or really
I
serving.
mean, I'm sure there's some hotel stays associated with it. It just sounded like it's not a huge number.
No,
It's
it
the
was-
numbers of attendance aren't massive.
Right.
Most people are camping out there rather than staying in hotels locally, and they're not bringing out a lot of local vendors to support their event.
And locals aren't really
So, and it's not a
participating.
high local participation, so it doesn't hit the quality of life side as a result of that, as much. I mean, all of these things are great. I mean, I'd love to give them all money, you know, but.
They do tend to stay with their horses.
They do,
Which is
yeah.
understandable.
You're gonna put it when you're in the hotel, yeah.
Totally.
Okay, entertain a motion. Anyone want to step up
I
and,
really can't find anything wrong with this. I think it's.
Well, it's my recommendation, so I'll move to support that package of events.
and is there a second? Shaylee has seconded. Thank you, Shaylee. There's a motion on the table and a second. Any final comments? All in favor, raise your hand or signify otherwise. In the room, we're good, and online, we're good, so the motion passes unanimously. Kate, thank you so much for all of this work. And you obviously heard some, you and Sky both heard some suggestions for the next cycle.
Yes.
So it'll be a much
Thank you.
different exercise, and we won't be fumbling our way through, and we won't be putting applicants at a
And maybe we should
disadvantage.
even limit the amount that they can ask for. But it's something to think about, because if we only have $60,000, it's super unlikely we're ever gonna give to someone who asked for 30.
Right.
So, I don't know, and one more thing.
And also the total amount available.
Right,
That's what you're saying?
Yeah.
right? The total amount available.
yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you for your good descriptions.
The next item is an action item. And this is in the packet, a proposed amended budget to the cooperative agreement between Utah State University and Grand County. And Roger's been very helpful in taking up the charge with the transition of leadership, and is in the process of activating the Small Business Development Center in Moab, so at USU Moab. So turn it over to you, Roger.
Yep, so that has been initiated and approved, and we're moving forward on that. We've got 17 applications that we have received and reviewed, and we've narrowed it down to 3 people that we will be reaching out to. 2 of them have already been contacted and are still interested, even though this has been an outstanding for quite a period of time. 2 of those applicants have been contacted and are still interested in interviewing. And one of them, ironically, is from Idaho, my home state where I'm from, and they come here to Moab quite a bit, and they actually want to live here. So they're hopeful. We'll see how the interview process goes. So that's currently where it's at.
See you tomorrow.
We will have probably know where we are further with that in the next meeting.
Wonderful.
We'll be interviewing them within the next week or 2.
Okay. Will they have the candidates have an opportunity to talk to folks from the chamber? Or are they sufficiently aware of the environment? You mentioned one applicant.
One of the ones that has been contacted is a local person.
Okay.
The other one spends time in the community. They frequent here, it sounds like.
Okay.
And they're hopeful to actually locate to Moab. That's their goal.
Yeah.
Do they have housing?
And they well, and that may be the thing that will be the awareness, right? We don't know just exactly where they are, with the knowledge and understanding of the housing here, but we're assuming that they've done some research on that.
Probably shouldn't assume it.
Huh?
Don't assume it.
Yeah. Well,
I can't tell you how
we'll
over the years, how
definitely,
many people say, I just moved here and I need a place to live. I'm like,
Yeah.
what do you mean you just moved here?
it will definitely be a point of conversation that we will have with them, that once we get into the interview process, we'll have a better understanding of what they know about Moab and the housing situation, and have they considered that.
Do you have a target start date?
Not yet. We have a targeted interview date, which is, within the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Where we'll be able to actually have an interview process going on.
The reason I asked that question is that the chamber's organizing the summit, August 20th, 20th? 20.
August 20th, just the 20th.
That's right. Sorry. Yep, that's right.
Okay, so that'd be a great opportunity if you have a candidate selected for the candidate to be there and participate. Because our expectation has been that there will be a lot of coordination between the work that the chamber is doing and between the work that the new business resource specialists will be doing.
We'll sure work toward that. Yeah.
Okay, so
That'd be great.
the action item is to act to recommend to the commission, with the support of the Economic Development Department, to approve this amended budget for the commitment that has been made in the cooperative agreement. There was some questions early on about how the university would set its indirect or its overhead. That's a standard conversation with universities. And as you can see the note below, that this is pegged, this overhead is pegged at significantly below the standard, the SBDC standard. So we appreciate that acknowledgement. So I'd entertain a motion to approve, to endorse this budget proposal, to forward it to the county commission.
Can I ask a question before we?
Sure, absolutely.
Just a nice question, but so last time we met, we had a conversation about the changes that were to take place in the contract. And is there anything in this? I mean, I've looked through it, and I didn't see anything, but is there anything here that is significantly different from what we've previously discussed, like the last meeting?
Not since the last meeting that I was in. There was a point of concern from one of the committee members of the hiring committee as to the salary range for this position. And the question was, can that be increased? And short, because it's a 3-year budget, right, for us. And so by increasing the amount that salary, that decreases the amount of time that job. And I know that there's discussion about, you know, making this ongoing,
right,
with a results-based kind of a situation. And so we looked into that, and that really is a USU restriction as to how much that can increase. And so we're pretty much at the top end for that job classification.
Yeah.
So we'll go with what we have and then see how this first round of interviews and goes, and if not, then we'll repost and go from there. Yeah.
Thank you. That was a good question.
No changes from the last meeting.
Okay. Once again, entertain a motion.
For this.
Okay. Wonderful. Chris moved to move this forward, and Ashley seconded it. There being no other questions, call the question, and all in favor supporting this, raise your hand. Melissa's hand is raised, and Shaylee?
Yes, I'm voting yes.
Wonderful. It passes unanimously. So really appreciate, Roger, yours and Mike's persistence and patience with us to move this forward. Seems to be 4 o'clock and things seem to be, energy level seems to have dropped just a bit, but we have to keep going.
There's cookies. What else do you need?
Oh, is that what
did you
that?
need those?
I just saw a bag there. So thanks to Chris and Melissa, who have done a great deal of thinking about the conversation that we had at the end of last meeting about thinking about approaching the commissary kitchen concept for the Rural Counties grant application that's due in September. And I know that Chris has had some conversations with YGP, and Melissa, I'm acknowledging and attributing the bullet points that are included in the packet to my reading of your recommended steps to move forward. And so the way I suggest we approach this is to get an update on the learning that Melissa and Chris have brought to us, and then spend some time talking about the next steps, what they might be. It seems to me that a smaller working group could be formed to really work on this between now and the July meeting, which gives us a short period of time before we submit in September. One of the things that could happen is we could present an application just to do research on this, and do evaluation, market demand, et cetera, rather than go for a full-blown commissary kitchen, commercial kitchen in this grant proposal. Remember that we still have $75,000 requests from Moab Community Childcare to extend their services. So that's 75 of the $200,000 available in this cycle. So Chris and then Melissa, would you join in afterwards?
Well, let me just say one, well, okay, I can offer a couple of things. Yes, I have had a couple of conversations with folks at the Youth Garden Project, their board and executive director. And Sky and Ben and I are going to try to meet with them and go on site in the next couple of weeks. So we'll have additional conversations. I mean, I think they've offered to the community a kitchen that can be rented in the past, but it has pretty strong limitations to it. They're interested in being a part of this conversation and see the need also, as we all do, for some sort of commissary kitchen. I mean, Melissa and I have been talking, and I mean, what's more exciting is like thinking of it like a food incubator and thinking a little bit bigger even in terms of the support that could be offered to food startups. But I think there's also, I wouldn't say that YGP is like, they don't see this as their core mission, which I think is correct. So it's understandable that they want to be a part of the team, not the team leader. So I think we should continue to work with them. But I think that, for me, one of the big things to like see something like this really move forward is identifying needs and partners. And I don't think we're like there yet, but I think there's a lot of good ideas floating around that need to be sort of worked on. So this is sort of jumping ahead a little bit, but I'm not sure that this is a grant application for this year, or maybe it's that smaller one that you talked about for us that like sets the stage for a big grant application to get something off the ground in maybe next year. But I think this is a really great project that there's some momentum around, and we should keep pushing on and seeing if we can find a couple of champions that would really be willing to take it on, and really, in the process, learn more about exactly like what it should be in Moab, because the examples Melissa knows, and she should talk to us about. It would be great to hear from Melissa about some of this, because she's been involved in projects like this in other communities. They tend to be like much bigger communities and different communities than Moab. So we'd have to adapt, any sort of model of what like a food incubator or something like this could be in Moab.
And it looks like Colette might have her hand up too, to add something at this point.
Yes, if it's okay, Forrest.
Please.
Just wanted to echo the comments that have already been shared. I think it's important to have some really good anchor partners for this type of grant to make sure that it can be successful. And one of the main things that I would encourage you to think about as you're exploring and building this potential project is that the partner really should be, like you said, an anchor partner that is the university, the city, the county, maybe some type of government entity, or even a very well-established nonprofit that has facilities and good traction and good history, because the challenge is giving a big amount of money and making massive construction improvements to some type of facility, and it can appear as a transfer of funds for someone's personal wealth or a nonprofit's personal wealth. And so again, if the facility is actually in partnership with, say, Utah State, and they have some culinary classes and they are willing to host the facility, it's for the longevity and the upkeep of the building and the equipment. And it does take a lot of management too. And like you said, a willing partner that is willing to make sure that the facility is clean, the machinery is well maintained, and that the scheduling of the facility is open and available.
those are, oh, sorry, we should hear Melissa too. Those are really.
Thanks, Colette. Melissa? Chris has invited you into this conversation.
Perfect. No, I had just shared with Sky and Chris and Ben also just some examples of incubator kitchens and commissary kitchens and commercial kitchens, how different models work. I think to echo what Colette said, it's a large investment in maintenance and upkeep and, you know, taking an advisory role. And I love that Community Youth Garden wants to be involved in the work that and the conversations that Chris has had with them. And also, I think there's going to be a requirement of some passionate leadership because we need to look at sustainability also. So this is something that certainly while we want, you know, a nonprofit partner or the county as the partner or whoever, we also want it to be a profitable incubator type space for sustainability. Because just for the 501c3, I worry about donor fatigue. I worry about always needing additional funds. And we need someone who really has their arms around what is the model? How does it get used during the off season? How is the capacity that we've invested in going to bring in alternate revenue streams? Like, for example, food handlers permits and culinary training. And can we also use it for example, a catering kitchen to facilitate catering, because we know that we've got a booming bridal industry here. We've got a really big event and outdoor recreation industry that we can pull in for events. Do we have enough catering capacity? And we already know the answer to that is no. So I would almost echo what Chris had said too, is more along the lines of choosing the right project and what the community really needs and what we can most benefit from. And the funding, we'll find the funding. If we've got the right project, the right partners, it may even be that, you know, the first application is around feasibility studies and who might take that over and, you know, what are the different revenue streams? So we kind of need to decide how big of a project do we really want and need as a community and a county? Is this just a facility that people can go to that's like a nice place to be able to use a commercial kitchen? Or is it a business plan and a community asset that we plan to use as an economic development tool that we can use and leverage for events or for growing, you know, that economic base? Once we decide that, I think that then the next direction, the next steps will be really clear and getting the right plan. And I worry less about the funding than I do about having the right plan and the right partners.
So I didn't get to talk to y'all about this since then, but first problem is 125,000 isn't going to build anything, right? So, and that's all we have for this year. So we kind of have to choose go slow here and do a study. And I think is it a facility that's supposed to throw a profit? Like, if that's like what you just asked, like, what's the plan here? Or is it something that is funded some other way and it's like a service that we're trying to provide? And so I think those are really big questions that we have to decide. And I feel like when we've talked about it, we've kind of gone, oh, here's a way we could supply it. Oh, here's the demand. Oh, here's the supply. Here's the demand. And really what we want to do is kind of what I think you're kind of saying, is let's figure out the demand exactly. Like, who's going to use it? What are they going to use it for? Are they people that are going to need us to donate it to them? Or can we, like, if it was for wedding catering and we were renting it out and wedding caterers were using it, that they would pay for it, you know, but if it's for students, it's a little different thing. But we could do some kind of combination budget. Like, if we have this many weddings, we could deal with this many students or whatever. And I think if we really did a deep dive on what is the demand and what's the vision of what this thing is going to be, then I agree. We could, if we have a good vision, we can find the funding. But I think we need to spend the time and really do the work to figure out all these great ideas that came around this. What are we really talking about, and what do we think we could do? But it does seem like a project worth pursuing. Yeah.
I totally agree. And just to add on, Ashley, to what you said, is to add to the complexity of the planning and the scoping out of the project. it's even beyond the demand, meaning there might be potential economic development opportunity and diversification opportunity that doesn't currently exist, that isn't pulling from the demand side. So for example, you know, we already know that during the on season, it's really difficult to get into restaurants, and we know that real estate is limited, and that cost is a speed bump for people entering into that market. Are we facilitating in partnership with the food truck, you know, opening up that capacity? And then during the off season, is there opportunity for culinary partnerships and training with USU, Department of Workforce Services, special events and planning around even culinary classes for the community during the off season as date nights? So I kind of feel like, you know, you've got your demand and then people who have pent up demand that can't find space, but then looking at that overall broad economic opportunity to see how something like this might be able to facilitate opportunities that we can't currently take advantage of. So I love the idea of taking our time and defining exactly what it is that we want. And as far as, you know, finding the funding, again, if I could just echo, we'll find the right funding if we've got great partners and a great project. So that's my 2 cents.
Did you want to?
I was just curious if anybody has actually reached out to the local health department to find out what sort of limitations could be on this before the scope gets too big. I'm not sure if those exist. I'm not sure if catering, I mean, I'm sure they do, but like, wouldn't it be good to figure out where those are before it's like, good, we're gonna do catering and food trucks and classes and date nights, and before they go, whoa, you gotta pick like 1 or 2.
The main thing that we're about is the hood.
So yes,
Yeah,
that
the
is the
hood
biggest thing, and that is
The fire prevention is
pricey.
a major expense and a big deal.
It
And the
is.
rest of it is just sort of.
It's the rules. It's the same
Yeah,
rules for
exactly.
any
So
of
it would
those
be
things.
any,
Yeah.
I think, I'm pretty sure that this facility would have to meet those commercial kitchen
Oh, it would.
rules, of course. And, but I think, yeah, I mean, this is kind of how this conversation goes. We like, all these people can use it. Well, what is it? How these people can use it? So I think we should stop talking about what it is for a minute and talk about really fine tune the demand, because if people need it, and do they need it year round or do they need it seasonally? And then if you did just the idea of classes in the, you know, keeping it busy year round by using it to feed people in the season and then using it to teach people in the off season or whatever. Like, we just need to do a lot of math around this and figure out who is paying this money and how it would work.
And the outreach to the people who might actually need it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, is, I mean, I think that, so for me, like, what next steps might look like, or part of them, is, you know, getting a group of people from, like a subgroup of people from this body who are interested in the idea, and maybe 1 or 2 others, if there are folks that we think should really be in sort of like steering committee kind of mode. And then, you know, do some of this processing, but then also like convene a couple of meetings. I mean, one would be with potential users, folks that either already have small food-based businesses that use spaces like this, or that tried to start a business and failed because they didn't, or, you know, whatever, so people that are potential users. And then potential community partners in a similar meeting with people that could have something to offer, whether that could be facilities, that could be mentorship, that could be, you know, and those are the kind of conversations that are going to allow us to sort of create an actual proposal. And hopefully also like generate the network and sort of awareness that we need to find the partners that would, without partners, like, I don't have the time to run this, I don't know if you do, but like, you know, so we need to find somebody who does, and has the interest and energy to do that.
What's going on with like the kitchen at the Grand Center? How much use does that get?
Quite a bit, quite a bit. And it's used, you know, all, yeah.
They do a daily lunch, right?
I don't think it's daily, it's close to daily. Then they have a lot of events like yours. Yours, so but I don't think it's a commercial kitchen.
I don't think so either.
I don't.
It's not even close to a commercial kitchen, it's really.
But what
small.
would it take to upgrade it?
That's
$20,000 hood.
So we should,
Well,
I mean,
that
but
was
they
it,
would,
but
they
then
would
there
be
was-
a partner to talk to, for sure, right? I
Yeah, they
totally
would be a
agree.
good partner, and I think, yes.
Melissa?
No, I was just gonna say, I don't remember why, but someone from the county, and maybe it was, and in this meeting from the economic development department said that for some reason Grand County, the Grand County Center is off limits. For some reason for that. Like there's something around how it was structured or how it's used that it's not an option.
I will investigate that for you.
Okay.
Melissa, I remember that meeting because we were in some other location.
Yeah.
We were in a location in City Hall and couldn't find our way around. And that response was, we don't think of getting money, and this was 2 years ago. So we don't think of pursuing grants just to fix our own buildings.
Right, well, that makes total sense.
And that at the time, the conversation was about, can we invest in the audio visual and all of the elements that make the Grand Center much more useful for large groups, corporate groups and the like. So I remember that vividly. And so I think that.
Colette's hand up.
Pardon?
Colette has something to say about this.
Mary, were you gonna say something?
Colette.
Oh, Colette.
Oh, did you finish your thought? I was gonna say, were you done, Forrest?
Please proceed.
I just wanted to add that if you decide to do an exploratory committee now or in the future, I would be happy to help serve on that advisory committee and give some input as far as the structure of not only this grant but potentially other grants that might play into this idea. I just wanted it to go on record that I have thought, and I still think this is a really good potential project. I think it could be really beneficial for your region, not only for the food trucks, catering companies, but also companies who may want to make and package anything from trail mix to granola bars to pastries and wholesale to the local coffee shops. I think we can have many industries come out of one kitchen, but there is a high level of coordination. And as you're exploring the different options in town, one thing that I've run into in my personal history is in trying to stand up a similar program is it's always the grease traps that will not pass the health department, and grease traps are very expensive. And so we have the capacity within this grant to write the grant for enough money to install a grease trap or update a grease trap at an existing location. But to have a really good thriving kitchen, most of the time it's that gets hung up with the health department.
Thank you. Thank you.
Forrest, do you know, is there anything on the horizon from the private sector that's trying to do this? Would you know about that?
In Moab in general, I'm not aware of that. There may be.
Is there? There's been a few inquiries over the past few years.
Have there?
There's
So-
just been inquiries and
But the hood and the grease trap. It's
So
a
Colette,
huge-
in a private sector transaction, are grants available to be able to help participate in some of those higher costs, like a grease trap and a hood? Can it be used in any way in conjunction with a private sector building a building and making those things happen?
So in theory, yes. However, I think for practical reasons, to get the grant application past the committee would be safer to partner again with the county, the city, Utah State, or another entity. Because if you work to improve a private, like I started a partnership in my previous life in higher education with a restaurant that was closed in the wintertime to contract to do some culinary arts classes, and gave funds for some improvements, but they were minimal improvements just to get some basic classes going. And so that was justifiable, but to make a $3, $4, or even $500,000 investment in a private business, no, we can't get that past our committee. And so again, if you have an existing facility that would just need some minimal upgrades, I think we could do that on the private side. But I just encourage the group to think about your public facilities.
So one idea, actually, the way we're talking about this is, as we look at the demand, there is supply scattered about that is like, I don't have the hood, but I have the kitchen, but you can't use it in the spring or fall. It's busy. But you can use it in the summer and the winter. So like, there's a resource that's kind of available, but not really, right? And so if we look at the demand and we say, oh, and then we go, okay, there are people looking for these places, but I'm not advertising or making it available to anyone, really, because I don't have the hood. But so it feels like there's a real opportunity to look at the demand, look at what is kind of available right now. Like, is that something that our business would want to do? We want a $20,000 grant, we'll fix the hood and the grease trap, and then we promise to make it available this time to this time. And it's gonna grow revenue because somebody's gonna start a salsa company or something. So we could look at, and what's going on with the Grant Center kitchen? Like, could it be, and the other thing about that is that you could start to build demand for it before we committed to a totally freestanding building that we're suddenly supposed to make money and fill all the time. So there might be a kind of a ramping up idea that would use some of the excess capacity that's kicking around, and then we could go from there.
Or you start doing that outreach and then people start getting ideas of what they could do with that space.
And there are businesses that have done that exact model. They just haven't really found it sustainable with two different operations trying to use the space.
Right.
So it lasted, I think the longest I heard it was Trailhead and Taze, about 2.5 months before it just became untenable.
Yeah. See, my situation is literally the people are gone. Like, there's nobody fighting them to use that kitchen at that time. So, but because all our guys go to the mountains in the summer. Right? But anyway, it's just, I think there's a lot of interesting ideas just how to get from here to there. And I think a study would be really good and starting to understand. And yeah, I don't mean just the existing demand, but what would the future demand could it be? And maybe there's a way to sort of ramp up towards this.
Yeah,
instead of immediately saying, we're gonna build a private building and USU is gonna maintain the
culture.
Yeah, right.
So what were you saying is the conflict that happens between the two?
It usually just has to do with shared space. A lot of it comes down to refrigerator and freezer space.
Yeah, and so one of them finally says.
Yep. And you only have so much room in your
somewhere else.
kitchen
It's just-
for
yeah.
There's so much stuff that like,
Yeah,
I mean, I
well-
looked into it with coffee production and like,
Mhm.
I mean, I was just learned from people on like, online forums and stuff like that. It's like, these things often fail because it turns out your partner has a grease-filled business and then your
Right.
equipment is destroyed by all that. Or, there's so many ways that
Yeah.
you might not, unless you've already run a business like this, understand the way those two businesses interact in like space. But, I mean, I don't know, if you're making something and then there's like a bunch of powdered sugar floating around, there's so many ways it can go wrong.
And that's pretty much the.
But that's why that's why you have to sort of like learn, and that's when you do have a shared kitchen space, there have to be certain protocols in place in between uses and how you manage it so that it is clean enough for everybody. I mean, there's a lot of hoops to jump through, but that's just how this works. I mean, there's a lot of demand out there to push something like this through those kind of hoops also. I think it's just a process.
If ultimately the goal is to launch a business, then that gives it a little different flavor. It's like, yes, we know you're gonna run out of freezer space on this day or whatever, then it's a little more, it's not like trying to have this run rate forever. More, you booked it for 3 months, here are the rules, and we expect you to fly or sink between.
Or here are the limitations, that you're gonna run into, that freezer space and that fridge space may be something you have somewhere else, and then you go in and you use the other facilities.
I mean, but there could probably be long-term customers for a facility like this too, who run a business whose business model just works at that level. I mean, if you're doing takeout lunches for hikes, like, you don't need like a massive permanent space.
They're never gonna have their own big big space.
Yeah, and if you just need to, if you can make your product in a few hours a day, then like somebody else should be using that space for the other few hours a day. Like that's how you pay rent. Otherwise, it's very hard to pay rent by just making sandwiches for a couple hours a day, right?
And I do think the nice thing is too, is once we decide what it is, what are the opportunities that we want to facilitate? And what are the needs that need to be filled in the community or for economic development? We're not going to have to reinvent the wheel because there are some really great models out there who have already spent all of that initial investment to figure these things out. Couple of things that I would maybe encourage everyone to look at, for example, is ghost kitchens are really popular. One of the models that I really like is called Cloud Kitchen. And if you get an opportunity to investigate that, they sort of have apportioned spaces where each business can rent that space, and that is their own space. So it's almost like having their own restaurant that they have, but it doesn't have that speed bump of that huge investment. And it also doesn't require them to rent that full year round if they're just supplying the demand during tourism season. So and other models like Spice Kitchen in Salt Lake that's run by IRC, they really have been able to facilitate the food truck market and also kind of some of that commissary kitchen market as well. If we want to say, also an incubator space where people can market and sell and package Moab branded food products to be able to sell not just in our own region, but to have a national supply with like a shared shipping area. So it kind of depends on, how big is the vision, what is it exactly that we want to facilitate? And then luckily, we don't have to have necessarily all that subject matter expertise or that experience, because there are some folks that are doing it really well and really efficiently that have, a few years jump start on us, which is kind of nice too.
We've had a good conversation, lots of questions, lots of ideas. We should take some action now. The next steps would be forming a small working group. And it would be great if Shaylee or Cassie would participate in that, knowing that you have a heck of a lot of stuff coming up in the next couple of months, or somebody else from the chamber who would be willing to contribute to that. Chris and Melissa have already put in a lot of time thinking about this. Ashley has actually been managing a place somewhat similar to that we're talking about. Yeah, you can shake your head, but yes. So we've got some talent here to get this started. And it would make sense for us to go ahead and actually ask people to volunteer or to be voluntold that they're going to be on this committee. And then we need to, as Chris suggested, bring in some people from other people who are interested, who might really embrace this idea. I'm looking for suggestions, volunteers, or think about it, and I'll cycle back in a week. Sky and I will cycle back in a week.
I definitely will be part of it.
Yeah, we can definitely find if it's not one of us, we'll find someone from the chamber, but it'll probably be one of us. Let's be honest. But my July is just insane, so I won't be in town much.
Yeah, my July is a little crazy, but other than that, I'm good. So
Okay.
I'm happy to help. Yeah.
Okay.
Same.
So I'm going to consult with Sky after this and reach out to everybody early next week. Thank you for stepping up. Remember, nothing's impossible if you don't have to do it yourself. And so would love to have Melissa and Chris continue,
and Colette volunteered to be on the list.
And Colette did too, yes. So unless there's anything else, let's move on the agenda.
Thank you, Colette. That's really nice.
I'm happy to help anytime.
Thank you. On the agenda is a Chamber of Commerce update.
Huh, weird. It's probably not
Does
that.
Shaylee have that or?
It says Shaylee.
Okay.
On the agenda.
I thought that's what it said.
Is there something specific I'm supposed to talk about?
Just an update.
Oh, chamber update.
The summit.
The summit.
We are going to Red Cliffs on Friday to do a walkthrough. I think we have the agenda really lined up pretty good. There's a few things. We did cancel the fun day just because we were having a hard time lining up everything. So we'll have to kind of come back to the drawing board for the prequel fun day for hopefully next year. But I think we have some good speakers that have committed. We're selling tickets. Any thoughts from you guys?
Wait, you're at Red Cliffs this year at,
Red Cliffs, yeah.
what's the date?
August 20th.
So
Coming right up.
anyone who feels concerned about Moab's economy should come to this summit. We're really trying to have a productive discussion about what drives our economy, what's happening. We're gonna have a report on the, I call it Trails to Prosperity every time.
Trails to Tomorrow.
Thank you, Trails to Tomorrow. No prosperity, just tomorrow.
Can we
I
have
did a
both?
project on that.
I would like tomorrow to be prosperous.
Yeah. So, no, but there is gonna be a conversation about, how gateway communities work, what they're doing right, there's gonna be, input, there's gonna be breakout sessions. So it's really gonna be a chance to do a deep dive into how is the Moab economy working right now? And while we've all, talked about diversification, we ain't got no housing and we ain't got no workforce. And so real diversification is not gonna happen for a while in terms of, but that doesn't mean we don't have opportunities to, we are the most blessed gateway community on the planet. Almost everything ever invented for outdoor recreation is being used in Moab almost every day. Like, we are world class in so many things. So we need to really celebrate what we're good at and make sure we're doing a better job of both taking care of our visitors and growing them and taking care of our locals. And they're not mutually exclusive. And so that's what the summit's really gonna try to do, a deep dive in, and we have some great speakers coming. And there's gonna be opportunity for input. So it's not just sit there all day and listen. We wanna hear from everyone. So please spread the word.
And I'm happy to get a QR code to you guys, so when people ask you about it, you just whip out your phone and be like, here, register. So I'm happy to do that.
Or send it to everyone, because it really is gonna be a great opportunity to get on the same page and get some funny little myths that people are stuck on.
Oh, yeah. That'd be really
We need to
nice.
get back past, like, more TRT equals economic success, less equals failure. It's way more complicated than that. We need to talk more about it, so.
Yeah.
We're really excited about it. We've been working really hard on it. It's gonna be great. So come and bring 10.
I will be there.
Okay.
Okay, anything to add, Cassidy?
Yeah, how much is the ticket this time?
So it's $99 for the early bird until July 5th, and then it goes up to $149. So if we can, yeah.
99 is.
So that's where we're at right now.
Are you
But
still-
it's.
What was it last year?
Around the same.
Around
Was
the
it
same.
like 100? Wasn't here last year, I don't know, sorry.
And, now, is there going to be anything the night before, or is that just gone?
We're not gonna do the night before, because all of the stuff that we tried to do just kept falling through, like
So
everything.
it's just gonna be the.
It just
Yeah.
wasn't enough time. So it's
Yeah.
a day, it includes lunch and like a little breakfast. And, yeah, that's where the pricing came.
Yeah, but next year, like, I think because this was a really, like, it was a really great learning experience, so next year, I think we can really
When you
like
had to
dive
change
deep
your
into that and have our day before to be a lot of fun and, yeah, so.
The other thing is, we probably do need to do some kind of dinner for the speakers. And because they're coming to town early, and so we might, depending on how our budget, if we've got the funds, we might do something the night before for the speakers that are coming from out of town. It's like a rehearsal dinner.
Which we do have that.
Yeah, so we're working on that. But next year we'll make it a much bigger.
Great.
But,
I had a lot of fun.
we'll let you know about that, Mary, too. Like, we can see if we can get together some chamber folks and county folks or
Yeah,
whatever.
which would be great, yeah.
It's looking really good. It's looking really
Excited
good.
about it.
And that I'm assuming that the idea that this is a different style with more conversation and is going to be appealing to people.
I hope so, and I'm personally working it. Everyone who came to a chamber chat this year or didn't come or wanted to complain about anything is gonna be forced to show up and talk about it. So that, because I just think there's real opportunity for us all to be on the same page. We don't have to be, and I like having these false choices all the time.
So, yeah, that's, to me, that's what's the most appealing is this false choice that is being just driven by a few people.
Yeah.
It's either all this way or everything's gonna go into sewer.
Thank you, Cassie. Thanks, Ashley, for your work on that. And thanks, Shaylee, for your leadership on that. Colette, can you give us a GOEO update?
I'll make it my shortest update ever. How about that? We are just finalizing our first round of interviews for our new outreach manager for the eastern side of the state. This week we'll be doing second the next week, and we're hoping to have someone hired within 2 weeks. And then since my last update, dates haven't changed. We're looking for intent to apply applications for the Rural Communities Opportunity Grant starting on July 1st. Doesn't mean you have to submit on July 1st, but that's just when the intent to apply opens. And then of course, we'll be looking to finalize the applications in September and submit in October. So that's all the same. Things are going well, and I'm really looking forward to see what this committee lands on for their project this year.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions for Colette? Sky, would you stand in as the assistant director with an EDD department?
Absolutely. I'm gonna be a little brief too. Sort of high level stuff that we're working on because it is very busy. But the exciting and dynamic things going on are that a reminder on the update for Trail to Tomorrow. So our Better Destinations team is going to be presenting to the county commission on August 6th. So right before our business summit. And we actually will have the exciting privilege to have Jeremy Sage with RRC, which is part of our Trail to Tomorrow team, as one of the speakers at the business summit. He's going to really dial in on data details. So I think it's gonna be a phenomenal contribution to the summit. This week is high intensity Utah Office of Tourism Cooperative Marketing Grant Week. So that closes on Friday. And I would like to invite everybody in this room and all of your relatives to submit a letter of support for us, because all of them are extremely valuable. So I know we did an email blast through to local businesses yesterday, but I'll probably follow up with this board specifically with a little bit of information on that for you. And we would absolutely love your support for that. And I'll also make sure I include the deck that really sort of talks about and goes over what we are, the marketing plan for next year for this grant. It's awesome. We're changing scope a little bit and I'm very excited. We also have interviews for our assistant director of tourism marketing role this week, which is fantastic. There are a lot of excellent candidates. I'm very hopeful actually that we will find too many people and it'll be a hard choice, and there will be a new team member shortly. Those interviews are scheduled for Thursday and Friday of this week. The RFP for the redesign of Discover Moab and the new hosting and the integration of the new design, the old content into the new design, that all closes Friday. So we are kicking off the review of that coming up on Monday. So that's exciting news. And this last month, I will say the highlight of this last month was working with Mark Finley on a Moab foodie scene, sexy restaurant video, which is going to be amazing. I was just looking at some clips for it, some shots, but really sort of capturing the food scene and how absolutely diverse and sophisticated it is here. And we're looking forward to having content that's more of that, about all the other things that Moab has to offer outside of outdoor rec. So that will be coming out soon, hopefully. And then we are blasting out the county fair is coming up next week, as we all know, but there is a ton of need for volunteers still. So appreciate any distribution of that very easy to sign up web link out to your team as well. And I think that is it. And Colette had mentioned just that reminder for the Rural County Grant that our reporting for last year's funds deadline is September 1. And then our the application deadline is October 1.
Wonderful. Thank you. And thanks for all you're doing. This is going to be, you're going to have a busy summer.
It hasn't not been busy since I joined. I'm actually celebrating my year. I think year with the county was last week or the week before. It's been fast.
Yes. And you've helped supercharge it, so thank you. Thank you. Anything else for the good of the order? Thank you all for being here. Roger, thank you both for being here, and look forward to seeing you all again. We're adjourned.